Hey, this is Ash from Revolution Me, and this video is on how I transitioned my husband into a vegan lifestyle. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I see a lot of new vegans or people who've been vegan for a while who enter into a relationship with a non-vegan, and you come across a whole lot of challenges when one person is vegan and the other person is not. Especially if you live with that other person, because you will have a lot of meals together, there's shared kitchen space, decisions about what to buy, what not to buy, and what to feed yourselves, and it can create some conflict. So as someone who has been vegan, it's coming into my 8th year now, and for my husband it's 4 years. So there was an overlap period there where he continued to eat meat and animal products and I was vegan. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that I found to be most effective in helping him make the transition. And yes, and I did have a chat with him before making this video, because I also wanted to get his perspective on what he found to be the most helpful, and it was actually a bit of a surprise to me. I learned something in having that chat with him too. The first thing that I want to say is that the decision to become vegan is something that I think needs to come from within the person. And I don't believe in ultimatums, in getting anyone to do anything really. To say to someone that you need to be a vegan, or I'm going to leave you, or I'm going to end the relationship, I think is, if that does work, then it's going to be working for the wrong reasons. It doesn't create a lifelong vegan, and it just builds resentment. So the change has to come from inside. So here are my top 3 tips if you're trying to convert your partner to becoming vegan. The first is to be a positive role model. Now, I just want to explain what I mean, because this can mean different things to different people. When I talk about a positive role model, I'm talking about not just in what we do, but also in what we say and what we think. A lot of people think that veganism is about restriction. A lot of people have the misconception that vegans just eat really boring food, carrot sticks and salads, and we miss out on everything that's fun. Now, if you're vegan, you know that couldn't be further from the truth. Being a vegan is about abundance, and not just in the food that we eat, but also in the way that we think. Because when we become vegan, when we adopt the principles of compassion and non-violence, it actually expands our thinking and opens up our minds. And for many people, adopting a vegan lifestyle is the kind of like the gateway for them to experience abundance in many different areas of their life. So when I say being a positive role model, what I mean is focusing on the abundant aspects of veganism. When I first became vegan, I did a 30-day vegan challenge, which was great, and I'm so glad that I did it. And then after that, I really started to get into the animal rights, the animal welfare aspect of veganism. And I found myself getting really angry and sometimes a bit evangelical. So with my husband, he used to eat a lot of chicken, and I would sit down with him, I would say, look, this is what happens to chickens. They're one of the most abused and exploited animals in the world. And he just wasn't in a space at that time when he was ready to hear that. The other thing that being an example of abundance is referring to the food. There's a reason why the vegan festivals are all about food. And whether it's desserts like cupcakes and brownies, or it's like nachos and quesadillas, and I don't think there's anything these days that cannot be veganized. And so when I became vegan, I wasn't really eating a lot of that sort of stuff, but I used to go to a lot of vegan festivals, and occasionally my husband would come along and he would see the abundance of food, and whenever he didn't want to come along, I would bring stuff home for him. Now, my second tip would be to focus on the positive changes that your partner is making. When I became vegan, I did a 30-day challenge, and as part of doing that, I said to my husband that he didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to change his diet. He didn't have to do the challenge with me. I told him that if he wanted to try some of the foods that I was eating, some of the stuff that I was making, then he was welcome to do that. But I didn't force it on him. But when you live with someone and you radically change your food habits, I think it's inevitable that some of that is going to rub off on the other people living in the house. And so I did notice that my husband would eat more fruit, and he was trying some of the vegan meals that I was making. And so every time he did that, I would point it out, and I would say, good on you for eating more fruit, and good on you for not having this cereal with cow's breast milk on it and instead having this smoothie that I've made or whatever. And so focusing on the positive changes rather than focusing on where the person still needs to improve. I think this can happen a lot in the vegan community. Someone, maybe in a Facebook group, someone will post something about how they've been vegan for a month, or they cut out all meat for a month and they've been vegetarian, and then someone will pipe up and say, oh, but you're still eating all of these other things, and will just point out the flaws in their diet rather than focusing on all the improvements that have been made. So I think based on where our focus goes, if we focus on the positive changes that someone has made, it inspires them to keep making those positive changes. And if we focus on all the things that they're doing wrong, then it probably it does the complete opposite of inspire. It probably demotivates them to continue to make changes. And I think it's one of the reasons why it can make veganism look bad or look unattainable. And my third tip, and this is actually my most important one, or my most recommended one, and that is to focus on your partner as being a vegan in progress, rather than being a us versus them, vegan versus non-vegan. I like to believe that most people would become vegan if they knew the truth. A lot of people just don't want to know the truth, and I think it's not because they don't care. I think it's because they care too much. Because if people watch things like Earthlings, they learn the truth, and then they realize that they have no excuse for not making a change, because you can't claim to love animals and then still eat them. You can't claim to love animals and then, knowing what happens to them, keep eating them. And I think that's why there is so much resistance even to finding out what happens in the animal product industry. So I've heard somewhere, I don't know if these numbers are correct, I've heard somewhere that someone needs to hear the vegan message 50 times before they really start to take it on board. Now, I don't know if it's 50 times or 51 times, or maybe it's 50,000 times. The point is that every positive message of veganism that someone hears, it is a step in the right direction for them. And whether they have to hear the message 50 times or 50,000 times, it doesn't really matter, because the more positive messages they hear, the closer they are to getting there. And I knew for my husband, I mean, he loves animals. He just happened to have this massive dissociation between what was served up on his plate and the living, feeling, sentient beings that we all love. And so for him, it really just was a matter of time. And I think for most people, it is just a matter of time. Most people know that they shouldn't be eating meat. Most people know that animal products involve death, cruelty, and exploitation. But people would rather keep their heads in the sand, because it's more painful to learn the truth and then continue doing what you're doing, or continue eating the way that you're eating. And that's why people would rather not know. So I think when we view people as vegans in progress, it kind of creates like a different energy. I'm sorry, it sounds a little bit woo-woo. It creates a different energy, and we will respond to them differently. If there is a person who you think will never ever become vegan, then you'll treat them a little bit differently than a person who you know is going to become vegan in time. They're just not there yet. I think we respond to that person with more kindness, more positivity than the person who we think is a lost cause. So act as if this person is a vegan in progress. Maybe they're not. You don't know that. It's just acting as if, because when you act as if, you change the way that you respond to them, the way that you react to them. I think you change the way you interact with them. So those are my 3 tips. And I think that when you start from a place of being the positive role model, focusing on what the person's doing right rather than what they're doing wrong, and approaching the situation as though they are a vegan in progress, when you change all those things, it has downstream effects. Like, you will tend to be more encouraging of their efforts. You will tend to have a diversity of vegan food available, or at least give them the opportunities of discovering different types of vegan food, so they can learn about the abundant vegan lifestyle, as opposed to they might have preconceived notions that it's actually a restrictive lifestyle. If people think that vegans are just angry and hateful, and you come at it from a positive viewpoint and you're focusing on the positive, then it breaks down those barriers. Most of the whole process of becoming vegan is actually just breaking through the barriers that we have in our own mind. Because there is no rational reason to continue to eat meat. But logic doesn't work on a lot of people. It has to come from emotion. It has to come from inside. The reason that people don't adopt a vegan diet is simply because they're afraid of the unknown and they're afraid of what might happen if they change. So by breaking through some of those beliefs, breaking through stereotypes about vegans being angry, being emaciated, about a vegan diet being restrictive and missing out on the good things in life, by breaking through all of those barriers, we can actually, I think, bring more people into the vegan lifestyle. And ultimately, that's what we want. We want people who are going to be vegans for the long haul, for the rest of their lives, not just flash in the pan, doing it for a diet, doing it for a quick weight loss, or doing it because someone's given them an ultimatum into doing it. So I'm going to end the video there. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, please leave me a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.